Welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I'm Michael Liebowitz, and conspicuous by his absence is Mark Pellegrino. He is currently in transit, so I will be conducting the show all by my lonesome, but I think I'll be able to cut it today. I am having a bit of a problem because my mouse for the computer is not working, so I have to use the thing here in the front, which I really don't know how to use, but I'm getting better at it. I'm going to keep improving it, and we'll keep going. We got a lot in the news today, but first I want to talk about, there's an article today from the American Institute for Economic Research that's all about the French politician, philosopher, and economist, one Frederic Bastiat. And I am going to right now post this article to X, and I highly recommend you read it. It's a great article. He was a great author. He was able to break down complex economic topics and make them readily understandable to the average person, which I was, by the way, when I guess I still am the average person, but I was entirely unaware of economics as a subject, or moral philosophy, or politics when I first came across Frederic Bastiat's book, The Law. And this book, now I've since I found some issues with it, but the issues pale in comparison with the absolute genius of the book. And what Frederic Bastiat makes clear is that if stealing is wrong for one person to do, then it doesn't matter how many people you get together, what you call your organization. If you take something that does not belong to you from somebody to whom it belongs, you are a thief. And it's stealing, what Bastiat called plunder. Of course, he's referencing government. So government, it doesn't matter what they call themselves, how many people vote for them. They don't have a right to your stuff, to your property. Now, similarly, Bastiat made the point that an individual can defend himself. If somebody attempts to plunder him, if somebody attempts to steal from him, harm him physically, that individual can defend himself or herself, as the case may be. And because an individual could defend himself, he reasoned that two people could get together and decide to defend themselves, and 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, whatever, so on and so forth. And this is what he justified as the proper government, that which protects the lives, liberty, and properties of the citizens in its jurisdiction. And I highly recommend the book, The Law. I think it's 70 pages, and you could probably find it online. And if not, you could buy it for $2 or $3. But the article that was posted today, or maybe it wasn't posted today, I don't know, but it was posted to the American Institute for Economic Research under the Daily Economy section, is about his work as an economist. And his fundamental insight as an economist was that, let me get a quick drink here, was that in economics, it's important to not only look at the immediate effects of a given action or a given policy, but to also look at the long-term effects. So he came up with the idea, for instance, he gave the broken window. It's come to be known as a broken window fallacy, where he said somebody may see, a shopkeeper has his window broken, and then someone says, oh, that's good because now people are going to be employed, the people that have to build, fix the window. And Bastiat argued, well, no, because, that person's employed, but now the shopkeeper has to spend his money on things that he wouldn't otherwise be spending them on. He is unable to invest in, for instance, new items for sale, a better shop, whatever. He can't now spend his money how he wants to. It has to go toward fixing this window. So all you've done is divert money. And he even went on to say, yes, it's true that you might argue, well, the money is just diverted, so it's equal. So there's no real loss, even if there's not a gain. But he says no, because the market participants are now, oh, I thought I was getting a text from Mark. It was not. It was just from my boss. So he said now people aren't spending their money the way that they want to. So it's inefficient. In other words, you're going to be spending your money on things that, you don't want to. And He makes a very compelling point. I highly recommend you check out that essay as well. Another point he made was in regard to trade. And he said, if imports truly make a country poorer, then why not just sink the ship that the imports are arriving on? And of course, everybody sees the idiocy of that's not going to make you any richer. And people understand that on an intuitive level when it's that obvious, but yet we still have the anti-traders or the reciprocal tariff folks or retaliatory tariffs, whatever. But what I would highly suggest is that everybody in the audience read this article. I posted it to X. I posted it to Facebook. Get yourself a copy of his book, The Law. I think you'll find it absolutely magnificent. It's the book along with Free to Choose by Milton Friedman that converted me to free market economics to begin with. So what else do we got over here? Let's see what's in the queue as far as stories go. So there's this lady. This is a very interesting story. This is in Reason magazine. And she got a permit for her chickens. She lived in Douglas, Michigan. So the rule is that you have to get a permit if you're going to have chickens. And before you get the permit, the neighbors get to state their objections, whatever. Why the neighbors get to object to whether I have chickens in my yard, I don't know, but whatever. So what ends up happening now is she gets approved for the permit. She gets the permit and she gets the chickens. The problem is that the town in which she lived did not first consult the neighbors. So now the neighbors are pissed off. They're saying, well, we didn't get consulted. So now after she's followed the steps she had to, they go to her and they say, no, you have to get rid of the chickens. But she's now invested a lot of money in these chickens, and buying the chickens, buying the coop, setting it up, all that sort of things. So she says, no, I'm not getting rid of the chickens. And now they're fining her $80,000 because she won't get rid of the chickens that she had a permit for. Greg Lewis says, if you ever live downwind from a chicken farm. Yes, neighborhood effects, Greg Lewis, yes. But the point is that she's now being fined. Now, to me, this is vast government overreach. Of course, there's situations where a case could be made. Well, if you're buying roosters, for instance, and the roosters are whatever they do, cockadoodle doing in the morning, and they're waking up the entire neighborhood and everybody's pissed off about it, you might be able to make an argument that your rights are somehow being violated. But even in those cases, my inclination is to go into the rights of the property owner, that the right of the person to be in their property and not hear a rooster cockadoodle doing is no greater than the rooster's owner's right to have the rooster. Now, it's a complex case, but that doesn't seem to be what is being made here, especially because the woman was, it was agreed to first. She followed the proper procedures. So how, it's interesting because how do you solve this now? Because you screwed over the neighbors by giving this woman the permit, but now you're screwing over the woman. And some people may argue, well, the town should just reimburse the woman for her costs. Now, actually, they're fining her, which is beyond ridiculous. But you could argue that they should reimburse the woman. The problem is where does the town get the money? And the town is ultimately going to get the money from stealing it. As per Frederic Bastiat, they're going to be stealing from the community in general to pay this woman for the money she spent. This is just one of the many, many problems that come with compulsory taxation, government interference in the economy, government telling people how to regulate things. It seems to me that this kind of thing would be much, much better solved by interpersonal contracts where, the person may go to the neighbor, say, look, I want to buy chickens. Do you mind? Maybe I'll pay you off to allow me to get the chickens. Whatever, they could do something. But once the government gets involved, everything gets screwed up. It's all based on compulsion, all based on rights violations. And it just is not a good thing. But I would love to know what your thoughts are on this. Ashley Shrugged says chickens are super low impact. You have to have quite a few for them to be stinky. She says she has goats, which are way louder. Thankfully, she says she's on enough land that no one can say anything. Well, and even in the case of the cockadoodle doing, I have 5 dogs here. And just before I came on the air, they're howling. They hear a ambulance siren or a siren of some sort. So they all start howling, and that, could piss the neighbors off too. But nobody says you can't own dogs. So I don't know what the issue is with these chickens. Ashley Shrug said, I would never live somewhere with an HOA, which is a housing authority, something, I believe. Lee says dog reveal now. The dogs are in the other room and they will not be being revealed because they can be a real nuisance. We have 5 of them. 2 of them are pit bulls. One of them is an Australian Shepherd. One is a Bichon and the other one is just very, very cute. Thank you, Kat Sterling, for the Homeowners Association and Akira Felix as well. So how do you think this situation should be solved, folks? Do you think that the woman should be reimbursed for her chickens? Do you think they should just let her keep the chickens? Should the neighbors be forced to compensate? What is going to happen here? I'll tell you what, I will take a picture of the dogs and post it when we go off the air, and then everybody can see them. I just mistakenly hit the wrong button on the telephone, so I got the wrong thing. But we're going to get to the nitty gritty here. So Elon Musk now is once again upset with the big, beautiful bill that is going to, looks like it's going to pass. I don't know. It's got to go back to the House, I get. But Musk says that this bill is insane and destructive. He's not happy at all. He says the latest Senate draft bill will destroy millions of jobs in America and cause immense strategic harm to our country. He also says that it gives handouts to industries of the past while severely damaging industries of the future. Now, there's a lot of ins and outs in these bills. These bills are thousands of pages long, and I have not, read the bill, obviously, but I do know that it's projected to add either 2.8 or 3.3 trillion dollars to the national debt, which is never a good thing. You can't just keep borrowing and borrowing to pay for goodies. And, you keep kicking the can down the line. Somebody has to pay for this stuff, whether it's through a economic crash, a downgrading of our bond rating. There's, the future generations have to pay the bills through taxation. There's a lot of different ways that these things can backfire. But, I'm just curious what people think now that Musk is once again criticizing the Donald. What do you think will come of this? And before I forget, let me just say that the opinions expressed on this show, while Mark and I are he's the chair, I'm the vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, and while we're here to promote the party, it should not be assumed that the views that we express here are necessarily indicative of party positions. Capitalists tend to be individualist, and we have different views even within the same party. You've seen Mark and I disagree on a number of issues, but the party is united around the core of the government is here to defend individual rights. So we do agree with that. All of us do, but we may disagree on the application. So please don't think that anything that Mark and I say is indicative of the views of everybody of the party. And speaking of the party, please go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org. Join the party. We're pushing for the future. We've got some great people fighting for the future of this party. For instance, Ashley Shrugged, Ariana Sneath, and her husband, whatever the name he goes by here, I think Alan Thomas, they are all really putting in a lot of effort to move this party forward. And, we could have a bright future. So check it out. Ashley Shrug says party members, including herself, think for ourselves. Yes, that's absolutely true. Kira Felix says, I love when you two debate. It reminds me of the Constitution debates. Well, I don't know if we're quite as astute as the gentleman who took part in that great 1787 event in Philadelphia. But thanks for the compliment, and it's well appreciated. Also, please check out my podcast, The Rational Egoist. We do a lot of great episodes over there. Psychology, economics, philosophy, politics, personal growth, anything really to do with ideas. So I'd ask that you check me out. All you have to do is go to YouTube, look up The Rational Egoist. Great show. I know I'm biased, but I really don't get too many bad takes on it. I get bad takes on me personally, but not on the show. People don't generally blast the show. This next story is just really so Trump administration is now working on a oh no, Greg Lewis, you didn't go there, did you? Greg Lewis says picking on Kara Peikoff, according to some. And of course, he's Greg Lewis is referencing my recent interview with James Stevens Valliant concerning the issue of Leonard Peikoff. It's very, I want to make clear, I've never, and I won't give my personal take on this issue. I've never read any of the relevant documents. I've never viewed the relevant people interacting with each other. And aside from Jim Valliant, I haven't talked to any of the people that are involved. I had Jim on my show. He asked me if I would let him on the show. He wanted to be able to give his side of the story. And so I did. Jim came on and he gave his side of the story. And, I love Jim, but I can't independently verify the things that he says. I would think that anybody that's looking at this should just really take a pause and understand the vast amount of ignorance that the vast majority of us have on this issue. I just wanted to give Jim a chance to defend himself so that people could see that his intentions are not malicious, whether you agree with him or not agree with him. So, but that's over there on the Rational Egoist right now. That episode has now gotten over 3,000 views, and the comment section is interesting because they get different arguments that have nothing to do with the topic at hand, but are classical disagreements between objectivists and libertarians, and objectivists themselves, things like about intellectual property and so forth. So I think that check the episode out if you're interested, and just get Jim's take on it. Let him present his side. Greg Lewis says he got some flack for linking the podcast to his wall. It's funny, Greg, because I learned a long time ago that you can never please anybody. And when you try to, you just end up fucking miserable. So what I try to do, and I'm sure Greg does, and I hope everybody else does, is I try to do what's right. And it doesn't mean I'm always going to make the right decision, but I have to act on my own best judgment of what I think the right thing to do is, because anything else, I'll lose my mind, because, advice, it's like bad pennies. It keeps popping up. Or as my friend Pat used to tell me years ago, it's like buses. They come by every 15 minutes. But anyways, enough of that. So the Trump administration is now working on a temporary pass for illegal immigrant farm and hotel workers. So it's just maddening because it creates such uncertainty. He's going to crack down. Well, he does, but now he doesn't. And he actually said this, and let me find the quote here. Okay, speaking with Maria Bartiromo on Fox News Sunday Morning Future, Trump says he's trying to reconcile being both, quote, strongest immigration guy that there's ever been, unquote, and also, quote, strongest farmer hotels guy. It's interesting because I didn't intend this, but it actually illustrates the point that I was just making, that you can't please everybody, Trump. That's what you're trying to do, and you can't do it. It's not a principled approach. It doesn't have anything to do with what he actually believes. It's just about pandering. But you never can please everybody. You're gonna piss somebody off in life. It's inevitable. Not everybody's gonna like you. I mean, as wonderful as I am, surprisingly, not everybody likes me. And I think, the audience would agree I'm a great guy, but not everybody likes me. And if I run around trying to please people, I end up miserable. I don't know if this is going to cost Trump anything, but it should, because it demonstrates that he's an unprincipled hack. And so I hope people catch on to that, but it also creates so much uncertainty. What do you do? If you're one of these workers, do you go to work and say, okay, Trump is going to try to make a workaround so we can stay, and then you end up getting picked up by ICE? Or do you say, you know what, the risk is too much, I'm not going to go to work? You just don't know what the hell to do. And uncertainty is just really the death knell to an economy. People need to understand what they're going to do, what the consequences of their actions are. If they don't know that ahead of time, it makes action damn near impossible. The great Ludwig von Mises once said, if cause and effect didn't exist, people could not act. And that applies here. Bonnie Bertrand says and I assume she's referring to Trump, is not trying to please anyone. He's trying to control all according to his latest whim. I think that he does like the control, Bonnie, but I also think that he likes to be liked. He wants people to like him. He wants people to approve of him. He can't stand criticism. It harms his fragile little ego. Speaking of the Trumpster, he says that Mamdani, this New York probably future mayor, must behave. Now, I don't know what the hell he means by behave, but I don't know where the president of the United States thinks he gets off telling a city mayor that he has to behave. But this goes to probably to Bonnie's point that Trump just likes to control everybody or wants to control everybody. In this, what the hell is his name again here? Mamdani, he made some controversial remarks that billionaires shouldn't exist. Well, who the fuck are you, to excuse my French, to decide who shouldn't exist? If people are rewarded on the free market for their skill and for providing value to customers, it's not your business how much money they make. But like Trump and like Bonnie says, he's somebody that wants to control things. He thinks he should control the outcomes that are taking place. I obviously disagree with him. Why? Why do I disagree? Well, the only way you can do that, prevent billionaires from coming into existence, is at the point of a metaphorical gun that will turn into a real gun if people don't listen to him. He really just wants to use force to level, to make people equal. And all that's going to do, besides violate the rights of massive amounts of people, is it stifles ingenuity, stifles entrepreneurship, stifles inventors. Why would anybody want to do that? I don't know. It's so obvious to me, but I guess maybe it's not obvious to everyone. And that's why we need to do this show. That's why we need to make these arguments. That's why all of us need to be out there advocating for capitalism, advocating for individual rights, advocating for freedom. And by the way, hit that like button, because if I go over here to YouTube right now and I see there's a deficit of likes, I am going to be very, very unhappy. Well, I won't really be very, very unhappy. It's a bit of a hyperbole, but I think it gets the point across. I want you people to hit this like button. Please hit the like button. Well, I'm not going to beg, but I would like you to hit the like button. It'd be nice. It helps the algorithm. Oh, no. Okay, we're good. We've got perfect like to viewer ratio. But the viewers are down today, and I assume it's because Mark's not here, and that's not making me very happy. Some of the viewers, I guess, are fair weather viewers. I don't know. But I still want you to hit the like button either way. And if you're not tuning in today because Mark's not here, I understand. He's the famous guy. I'm just some schmuck. But either way, we're here to argue for capitalism. Speaking of which, Mike Lee had a plan. Now, I first heard about this plan in 2000, I think 15 or early, must have been 16. I bought Ted Cruz's book because I was supporting Ted Cruz in the 2016 primary. Once I realized, I first supported Rand Paul. Once I found out Rand Paul wasn't viable, I supported Ted Cruz because although I disagreed with him on his religiosity, I did hear that he was a strict constructionist, a constitutionalist, and I heard he was well-versed in Austrian economics. So I decided to, back. He was the horse I was going to back. And I bought his book, A Time for Truth. And he had a plan to pay off the national debt, and that plan was to sell off all federal land. And I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful idea, because I don't really even know why we have federal land. I mean, I guess people like it. They go to their parks, whatever. But Mike Lee, who is not ranking very high on my list, and I don't really have a list, but nevertheless, but I don't rate him very high, not as a senator, not as a person. He's a big disappointment. But nevertheless had this idea to privatize some federal lands, and it was in the big, beautiful bill, but it's been removed. He removed it as part of a compromise, so I guess that's not going to happen, and it's a shame. I think it's a great idea. I think that more people should be pushing for it, and I think if it gets done and it gets done properly, it'd be a great success. Larry Green, who I believe is a neighbor of mine, somewhere in the vicinity of in New England somewhere, but he says people tune in for the bromance, not the news and commentary. Well, isn't that special? The people are just here for the bromance, and if the bromance isn't here, I guess we got nothing. Larry, I hope you're wrong. But I have to say this, you might be right, because I put out great content, right, on the Rational Egoist. And nevertheless, I'm growing, but growing slowly. I'm up to, I think, 1,300 subscribers. It's close to 1,300 subscribers. Get between 150 and 500 views an episode. But this episode I did recently about the Leonard Peikoff situation, which isn't really an intellectual episode. It's already over 3,000 views. And it kind of tells me what people are interested in and what they want to tune in for. And that kind of, while I'm excited about the 3,000 views, I'm disappointed that the 3,000 views didn't occur when I did my interview, for instance, on authenticity, right? The how to be authentic as a human being, or how to make purpose a part of our lives. So yeah, Scott says people care about the issue. I know, but it's hard for me to, what's the word I'm looking for here? At the end of the day, the people may care about the issue, but especially as objectivists, right? As individualists, as egoists, it seems to me that people would want to tune in for advice on how to grow as a person, on how to be more authentic, more of an individual, about ethics, which we've done a ton of episodes. So Scott, I get your point, and I don't disagree with it. And I'm not saying I wish people didn't tune in. I'm glad they tuned in. I just wish they tuned into the other episodes as well. Gary Menard says some of us tune in for the bickering about bickering. Well, who wouldn't? Who would not? We love to bicker. Ashley Shrug says, if you're here for Mark's celebrity or some other nonsense, you're a silly child. Wow. Ashley Shrug coming with the harshness. Well, I'm wondering what everyone thinks about privatizing the federal land. That's what I want to know. Bonnie Bertrand says she's watching the cute chickens in the coop in the yard behind hers, only about 3 or 4, and no problem as far as she knows. Thanks for plowing through all those stories for us every day. Bonnie, you are so, so welcome. And we may have an issue tomorrow with the show. I'm hoping to get it up and running, but I'm pretty certain that I'm going to Boston tomorrow because there's an Ayn Rand Center UK event that I'd like to check out. So I'm hoping that I can do the show from my car on my phone. I'll be in the passenger seat, of course. I'm not going to do it while I'm driving, but that's what I'm hoping for tomorrow. I think we can get it done. I'm pretty sure. Worst case scenario, I'll just do it from a different StreamYard account, and it won't be. I'll have to post it later to the YouTube station. I'll just post the show to X. Larry Green says, I'm joking. The news and commentary is why I tune in. Both of you guys are great. Larry, I assume that. Larry Green is a Facebook friend of mine. He's absolutely wonderful. We've been Facebook friends, I think, almost as long as I've been on Facebook. Greg Lewis says he does not want to grow up. Maybe he's a Toys R Us kid. Bonnie Bertrand wants to see the Capitalist Party grow. So do I, Bonnie Bertrand. And look at this. The American Capitalist Party. You need to check us out. Why capitalism matters. Capitalism is rooted in the principle of individual rights, including property rights. It is based on the ethical belief that individuals have the moral right to pursue their own happiness and freely trade value for value. Doesn't get much better than that, does it? Kat Sterling says, excellent. Thank you for being safe and not using your phone while driving. Well, unfortunately, Kat, I do occasionally use the phone while driving. Not when I'm doing, well, I'm not going to tell you how fast I drive. But, I just found out recently, speaking of driving, I just found out that you're not actually supposed to drive in the fast lane. You're supposed to use the fast lane just to pass and then get back in the other lane. I didn't know that. It seems rather silly to me. And then, Diana was telling me, you can't do that. You can't do that. I'm like, what are you talking about? I can do this. And soon after that, a story comes up on the news and it says that the Connecticut, they're cracking down on people driving in the fast lane. And I'm thinking to myself, why all of a sudden are they cracking down on this? Is this becoming a big issue where people are, crashes are increasing or something? And of course not. Of course, what it's all about is they just want to raise money by ticketing people. So they come up with a new reason. It reminds me of in prison, how, they let a guy get away with something. Everybody gets away with it all the time. And then all of a sudden the cops come around and say, the COs, we're going to enforce a rule we never enforced before because they want to give a ticket. Larry Green says he's in Boston tomorrow. Larry, maybe I'll run into you over there. I hope so. That'd be great. I'd love to meet you. I haven't met you, not in person anyway. So I hope to meet you. Let me see what the next story here is in our queue. I really wish I understood technology better. I guess not enough to where I'm actually willing to do something about it. It's just a lot to learn. The permit for the chickens, the thing there, the Trump bill. Looks like I've gone through all of our stories. So I think I'm going to tell you a little side story. So there was a woman who would frequently harass and criticize and judge my friend Mark Pellegrino on an issue where, to be quite frankly, I have my differences with him on it, and that's how Israel should be fighting the war. But he and I differ. We do so respectfully and rationally. But this lady would call him evil and just go on and on and on and harass him. She came on here and did it, and then she direct messaged me. So finally I said, well, can you prove your assertions? Do you think you can back them up? You're making ethical judgments. Let's see what you can, can you back them up? So we went through a little back and forth. It was polite, and she finally agreed to come on the show. And I said, okay, I'll have you on the show. And what we'll do is we're going to debate your moral standard and how it applies to Western civilization and the battle in Israel, the war in Israel, because those are the subjects that she talks about. So I brought her on the show, and she was just woefully unprepared, despite having the ARC UK live event tomorrow is at 1 p.m. in Boston, and it is free. You can go to their website to register, and Razi and Daniel will be there. I was supposed to have coffee with Razi the other day. Did not work out. Hopefully I will see him tomorrow. But anyways, so she was unprepared. She couldn't answer the simplest of questions. And I asked her, she says, murder is wrong. I said, okay, why? She says, it's obvious. And I said, well, if it's so obvious, you should be able to give an answer. She couldn't do it. So after, the episode went off the air, I said, this is not, one, it's not good content. Two, I felt bad for the woman because it was just not good for her. And I'm not a mean guy. So I decided, and then she actually asked me, can you please not post that? And I said, you know what? I'm not going to post it. I don't want to bother my producer with this. And I don't want to embarrass her, so I wasn't going to do it. And shortly thereafter, she started harassing me again with the same lines of argument. You guys are evil. It's bad. How can you advocate? I don't need to answer these questions, blah, 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 blah. I told her, please stop. She kept it up. I said, if you keep it up, I'm going to post the video. She kept it up. So eventually, I just posted the video. So now it's on X and everybody can see it. And then she says to me, that was wrong that you posted the video. You did it to be mean. And I said, well, no, I didn't do it to be mean. The fact of the matter is you're not learning anything. You think that you can just go spew venom out into the atmosphere and there's never going to be a consequence for it. You literally had a chance to come on my show and debate me on it, and you couldn't defend the simplest of things. And now you're, instead of learning, instead of saying, okay, I was wrong, let me step back and reflect, she went right back at it. Then she accused me of gaslighting her, of not debating what she wanted. So I actually posted, look, here's what you agreed to. It's right here. And, I don't feel good about it. I didn't really want to post this. I don't want people to feel bad or feel embarrassed, but what else do you do? This woman has no problem insulting people, raging at people. So I said, well, I'm going to put it out there. And so I did. And, anybody can go and check it out. I just really think that if you're going to pass moral judgments on people, you should be able to defend them. And it seems simple enough to me that you should be able to do that. So if you go and you watch, you can check it out and you can see what I'm talking about. And I'm hoping that she eventually will take the lesson, learn, and reflect, because as I told her, there's nothing to be ashamed with for being wrong or for not understanding something. There is something to be ashamed of, though, if you dig in your heels when you are obviously wrong. Kay Poyors, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, just correct me. She said, after how gracious you were to still argue that you were gaslighting her. Yes, I thought I was extremely gracious. I was extremely polite to her. The problem is she couldn't defend her ethical beliefs. And then she asked me to defend mine. And I did it in 5 minutes, and she couldn't challenge me on any of it. And it's just, when you have that amount of time, when you're already passing moral judgments and you have that amount of time to prepare for the show, you need to prepare. And I don't have any ill will to her. I don't want her to suffer. I don't want any of that. I just want her to stop harassing people, whether it be my friends or other people. It's just not right to go around and just blasting people with your views and telling them how evil they are and telling others how evil they are. I think we need to be better than that as human beings. And when she told me, well, you were wrong for doing that, I told her the same thing. Well, how do you know I'm wrong when you have no standard for right and wrong? You don't even know the difference. So that was that. So I'm hoping somebody comes up with a question in the audience here, because I'm kind of out of things to talk about. I ran through the stack of stories that I have. I don't have my what's his name, Mark, here to argue and bicker with me. So I need some questions. Lee says that Mark and I are sweethearts. Well, I don't know about that, but we're certainly not evil. I can attest to that. You know what I mean? So everybody hit the like button, please. We can get that done, and that'd be freaking great. We need a question. We need a question from the audience here. Ask me something, anything. What's his name? His name is Mark Pellegrino. Okay, I know what I'll do since I can do it. I will briefly discuss a philosophical problem that I had. Okay, Lee, what's the question? I hope it's a good one, but you could have just asked it instead of announcing it. But what's the question? Okay, before she asked the question, let me get to my point. Something that drove me absolutely crazy early in my philosophical pursuits. Yes, Lee, I can make you a reading list of books to read. I will do that. I had a real conflict because I was a devout follower of Austrian economics, which taught that value is subjective. Yet I was heavily influenced by Ayn Rand, who taught that value is objective. And this drove me batty, trying to figure out which was right, because on the Austrian side, it seemed absolutely clear to me that in an economy, the value judgments that people make, right or wrong, are what determines the prices. And it also, it finally occurred to me that, well, it's an objective fact of what is good or bad for a person. It's not a matter of opinion. Now, there's a broad range of opinion where, a person can have a preference of flavor of ice cream or type of food, whatever. I mean, there's some room there, but ultimately something is either harmful or it's beneficial. And finally, I just realized that the Austrians were ultimately wrong, that value is not subjective, that value is an objective term, but nevertheless, it is true to have it is true that it is the economic value judgments which ultimately are subjective that is what leads to the prices in an economy. It leads to what's produced, what's not produced, how people behave, that sort of thing. Sic parvis magna. Finally, what? What are you saying finally about? Well, I got to know. Kay Poyers says she'd love to hear my thoughts on tipping culture. Whoa, that's a tough one. It's very, very difficult because philosophy influences culture and then culture influences philosophy. But ultimately, it's about messaging. It's about education. It's about engaging in discussions and debates. And you just have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And hopefully, eventually we reach what Malcolm Gladwell called the tipping point where the thing goes. I mean, for so long, it seemed like it would never happen that, that gays could get married, and then it happened. They got married. Marijuana is now widely available and legal in many places, and it after decades of people making the arguments. So you never know what kind of influence you have on people, and you just need to keep making the arguments. And culture is a majority-driven phenomenon. So if we continue to make the arguments, convince enough people of the viability of capitalism, the morality of capitalism, we could get it implemented. I think that ultimately it's dependent on a philosophy of reason, which, of course, Ayn Rand has provided. I have this here. Objectivism. Look at this book, though. It is absolutely just falling apart. I've had this book for 20 years now, and it is falling apart, but I still get something out of it every time I check it out. Okay, what Greg Doherty says, in Germany, fast lane rules are more strictly enforced, along with prohibition of passing on the right. It substantially improves traffic flow and safety. Greg Doherty, are you in Germany? Are you a German? Do we have a German in the audience? I would like to know. It's not relevant to your point. I'm just curious if you've been. In Sic Parvis Magna, please tell me what you meant by finally. I'm dying to know what it is. No, Race, you don't need to send me your physical copy. I have the physical copy. I don't need a new copy of that book, Catson. I've probably read that book 30 times. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you. So I don't need a new copy. I don't need to retire it. It's good. It's it's fantastic. It was actually, and I'll tell you the story. So about 2004, 2005, I was on the phone with my mother, and my mother said to me, Mike, your father wants to buy you a chain so that when he passes, you will have something to remember him by. And I said, well, if he wants to buy me something, why not buy something that I actually value, which are books? And my mother said, oh, he wants to buy you a chain. So we went back and forth. And finally, I convinced my parents that books were the way to go. And the three books that I had them buy for me were Faith and Freedom by Thomas Saz, Capitalism, a Treatise on Economics by George Reisman. And I bought that book to help me with the aforementioned value problem, because Reisman was a student of both Mises and Rand. And it turns out he had the same problem, which I enjoyed reading about. And then the third book was this one, Objectivism, the Philosophy of Ayn Rand. And let me just show you, if you look closely, you can see it says GBMD somewhere around over here where my name is, right down here. And what that means is given by mom and dad. And what I ended up doing was I developed a tradition that every time my parents sent me a book or books, I wrote on the inside, given by my parents. I don't know what Bastian Balthasar Bucks is. I do know that I'm out of things to talk about, folks. I'm very, very sorry for that. I wish I had more interesting things to say. Unfortunately, I do not. If anybody has a quick question, I'd be happy to answer it. And please, yes, it has immense sentimental value to me, Race. Incredible sentimental value. I still have every book that my parents ever bought me while I was incarcerated. Okay, or every book from that point on. Lee, remind me to get you the list of books to read. Eustichus, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. I'm terrible with things like that. Let me, I got this freaking, but the mouse is not working. Let me see here. Click it. All right. No, it's not working. It just went up. What was your question? Can you repeat it for me? Because evidently I'm never going to be able to get this to do what I needed to do. Used to just, what was your question? I mean, here. No, a trackpad. I got that. I don't even know what that means. I think it's what I'm using, but it's not doing what I need to do. All right, I'm going to try to fix this. I'm going to try to fix my mouse with the audience here. Let's see if it works. Take it out, back in. It did work. Look at that. Okay, we're going to scroll up. Eustachius, I do not see your question anywhere. And because I don't see your question anywhere, I obviously cannot answer it. Oh, wait, maybe he's here. He said he asked if I could touch in the abortion debate going on in Twitter and the exchange between Agora and Ionis. Sure. So a problem is with these debates is ultimately people are misstating things. The whole debate started because this other guy who I ended up having to block misstated Ayn Rand's position and said that she said that life begins at birth, which actually was not what she said. She talked about the life of a human being begins at birth, and she's clarifying because that's when the baby becomes individuated. It becomes separated from the mother and becomes a life form all on its own. It's no longer physically dependent on the mother's body in the way that it was before. So that's how the argument started. But then it proceeded to Ionis Algora, not understanding fundamental things about objectivism, for instance, saying that life as the standard of value is axiomatic in objectivism, which of course it's not. In anybody can that's an objectivist knows it's not an axiom. And then he or she wanted to end up arguing about what an axiom was, and I finally said, you know what, I'm out. I can't keep going in this discussion because it was just obvious to me that the person was not understanding. Ionis's point is obvious that once a baby is born, it is a separate entity. Now his opponent is saying no, it's a separate entity when it's in the womb. Yes, Agora is doing the same. That's who I'm talking about, is Agora, Eutychus. So to me, it becomes a complicated question, not about abortion in my view, but about when children gain rights, because rights are a moral concept. Morality is dependent on volition, right? Morality is relevant to a volitional being. Now, an infant, obviously, a child in the womb is not volitional, certainly. And I don't think of a baby as volitional, but then we end up arguing, well, does a baby have rights? And it's a complicated question, one that I haven't solved yet, though I have thought about it. My default position is yes, but I think there's strong arguments against it. As far as a baby in the womb having rights that are independent of the mother's rights, I think that's just mistaken. First of all, it's obviously not a moral. It has no moral agency, the infant in the womb. Secondly, as Murray Rothbard argued, and I find his argument to be undefeatable, is that even if you were to argue convincingly that a baby has rights, or a fetus has rights, he argued, okay, but no human being has the right to live as a virtual parasite on another. You don't have the right to live inside of another human being. And he says, so why would that change because you have an infant, or rather a fetus inside you? So my take on it, and this is why I'm pro-choice, is independently of the morality of abortion, is that it is the mother's body and she has a right to do with it what she pleases, and no being has the right, or no entity has the right to live inside of her. That would be my personal argument. Rand argued, well, it's a cluster of cells. But of course, then, in late stage pregnancy, that changes and it becomes a different argument. So my personal belief, and I'm not stating this is the objectivist belief, is, and I don't know that there's an official objectivist position on this or official capitalist position on this. I think smart people can disagree on the subject, but my personal belief is that up until at least the late stages of pregnancy, abortion should be allowed. If there's if you can remove the child outside the mother's body and it could still be viable and live, then by all means save it. But I still think that the mother has the right to get it out, to get the fetus, the living entity, and I do think it's alive, but has the right to get it out of her. So that's my take on it. I think that abortion is a very complex subject. I don't, to some people it's not. To me, it is. But it has to do with, when do people gain rights? What's the nature of rights? What happens when the rights of the infant conflict with the rights of the mother? What obligations do parents have to their kids, and so on and so on and so on. So that's my take on it, and I hope it was helpful. If not, I'm sorry. You can certainly go read what Ayn Rand had to say about it. Harry Binswanger's commented a lot about the subject and written on the subject as well. I think Ben Bayer has at Ayn Rand Institute also. Okay, so that's going to be it for today. Hopefully Race will get me what the hell is that thing I'm looking for? A thumbnail. And I'm pretty sure I will be seeing you tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining me on the Capitalist Corner. Remember, check out my podcast, The Rational Egoist. Hit the like button. Go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org. And remember to always check your premises. Thanks, everyone.